Hello and welcome to week 7 of building the largest invisible hand we've ever seen on YouTube. This week, we were going to be working on a lift to bring ships from the lower level to the upper level. However, I placed a bricklink order 14 days ago, and guess what? It didn't ship. So, I've now canceled that order. Sorry, but 14 days is crazy, and I've now placed a new one. So, unfortunately, this week we can't make the lift happen. I'm really sad about it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
However, we got something even cooler to work on. But before we get into that, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button down below because we need all the support we can get for this project because this thing is really expensive. And with that, let's get into the update. The first thing I wanted to cover this update was to reinforce the bottom level. This was never meant to be a permanent solution, but as you guys can see, it's already sagging. So this week, the main goal is to reinforce this section of the ship with the few technic pieces I have left because, well, that bricklink order was going to have a lot of parts I needed to do this. To start off, I decided to play around with the pre-existing structure since I really didn't want to have to rebuild that because it was a pain in the butt because it's technic. Then we decided to add this new structure to the bottom of it, only for me to realize I built this thing entirely wrong. You see, with this new lift added, I'm going to need 4 studs of space below the plates. And I have absolutely no clue how I'm going to figure that out, because that means I have to take out a central core support from the ship. But I guess we can try and figure it out. So we got around to playing with it and try a few different variations as you guys see in this time lapse. And it is not going well, guys. We are getting cooked. But I hope we can figure it out. And I don't know how we did this, but somehow I figured it out. We just basically had to reinforce the sides a ton, and I mean a ton. And it worked. It worked out great. We have that big center hole in the bottom where we can insert the lift into that hole, and then we will have plates over here that will line up with this, and then they'll be able to transfer ships from the lower hangar to the top hangar, which is going to be insane for this Lego Separatist dreadnought. So now that we got the technic frame all laid out, now we got to reinforce this with some plates to make sure that we have plates in between the 2 levels of technic pins, and then we're going to reattach it to the Separatist dreadnought. And hopefully after we add this, we will no longer need that temporary support in the middle of the ship. Alright boys, we made some major progress. We now have the lower level attached, but we have one problem. You take away this thing right here, and the whole thing starts to sag, which is not good at all. Now, there are a few reasons for why this is. So, if you guys remember from the previous updates, right here, we currently have a part of the ship that splits apart right here. So, there's always that one little of weakness right there that we're working to support with these long beams that go into it. But remember, this part right here can split in 2. So that's one thing that doesn't help this. Another thing that doesn't help this situation is the long technic beam, which breaks apart right here, is not going all the way through. You see, if there's technic going all the way through this, and then it stayed on the same level and went all the way through, it would be a lot stronger. However, due to the fact that we're going to be adding snap floors right here, we basically decided to shift the technic to the very bottom of this. And we can do this because this section right here is lower than this section on the ship. So that's not helping this situation at all. And then on top of that fact, we took out the major strong core in the center right here, and we replaced it with some smaller technic beams, which isn't smart, but it needs to be done so that we can add a lift. So for all those reasons, the ship is sagging majorly, like majorly. This is how tall it's supposed to be at this point. It is way below the line, and that is not good whatsoever. However, the sag may not be as bad as we think, because there's a lot of things to be added to this ship to still support it, such as plating this off. That will help it a lot. It will help to connect this section to this section. Plating it off will help a lot. And also the fact that since we don't have any support right here connecting to this beam as of yet, there's this big room space right here that kind of just sags. And without having 2 lengths of support like we do over here, that doesn't help it at all. So maybe once we add this section right here, it will be a lot stronger. But honestly, I still think it will be sagging heavily right here, just because we have a divide right here, and the fact that we changed the level of the support, and we basically break apart this section right here and move the technic to there instead of it being up here. So that itself is a massive issue to figure out. And then also the fact that this support right here is already running to like bend a little bit, just because there is nothing on this side as of yet. There will be obviously a whole massive engine, You know, there'll be probably another 16 studs of plates on the back end over here. But there's also that massive issue with this build as well. So we got a lot of things currently not complete that are hurting this build in the ways of structure and support. So that's why I'm thinking we still might be able to get rid of this beam. Because honestly, if you span this to this, it doesn't really sag if you do it like on a brick built system like this. If you have one beam that goes all the way across, it doesn't really sag. But the problem is we have so many break aparts and like shifts within the support, it makes it a lot weaker. And also the fact that we haven't really beefing up the bases of these supports yet. Like we gotta really beef these up in the ways of technique and make sure that these things can actually stay flat. So what I'm trying to say is we may be able to get rid of this beam eventually. However, it's not the end of the road if it is there, because I see Separatist dreadnoughts that are like half the size of this and they have 3 supports across the thing. So I won't be heartbroken about that. However, I thought it'd be really cool if we just had 1 and 2. But if we have to add a 3rd one, that's totally okay. I just won't make it go all the way through the ship. It'll just be something right here that's a temporary support and is something that we will have. So the next section I'd say to work on would be this section right here. However, I don't think this is going to be possible due to the fact that we have very few technical parts left. And we were supposed to get a lot of them in that last pick order. So I think we'll have to not work on this section anymore this week, unfortunately. However, that does lead to our next thing that I want to talk about, which is the paneling on this ship. So the paneling is something I think I want to try to work on a little bit this week, just because I want to try and figure out if I'm going to be adding plate panels on the bottom or snot panels, which is what I used for the Venator, is snot. All that was just snot, kind of like this, and I want to see if I'm going to be doing that for the panels or not. I'm thinking I do want to do that for the panels on this ship just because of one reason: consistency. You see, if I do a bunch of plates, I don't think that will look as good when I display it next to the Venator. So I'm really interested in trying out snot. However, snot takes a lot longer, it's a lot more money, and especially with all these weird angles, it's going to make it very hard to achieve on this ship. So we got to put on this snot paneling on, and it was really easy to do. We just had to think of some cool techniques, and it came together like cake. This is how it ended up coming out. This is a pretty simple little maneuver I did that connects the bottom to the top, and then you have this nice angle. Now the way I wanted to connect it was really simple. All I did was I got an inverse plate like this piece right here, attach it to the side, and then you're all set. So now let's put this thing back on there and show you what that looks like. All right, and there it is attached, and I think it looks pretty cool, and I think this could be a method we definitely use for the whole ship, except for maybe a few bottom parts. But I mean, there's a lot of sections on here where I think I can capture the angle and actually use snot for the whole side of it, which would be absolutely insane because it's going to look so much cleaner that way, and I can capture so much more detail. But obviously, guys, this is just a placeholder. This was just like a little test to see what we can do with that. And then I got to working on the lower section a little bit. I got distracted, and I decided to add this little thing to the side to add some more support to help it out. And I think it came out okay. Obviously, I do need more parts for it. Like, I need another one of these to reconnect to right here and right here. But I think this will help it out a little bit too. And it doesn't really impact the inside space of it, because then I can just fit the snap pieces inside like this and spread that throughout the whole ship. Alright guys, let's go wrap it up for this week. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button for the next week, when we will get the parts for the new lift that's going to be installed on the ship. I'm really excited for that, and I can't wait to put it in. But until then, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out and goodbye.